would have been late 1970s, early 1980s. Toronto, Canada, on the shore of Lake Ontario. The first bar down there, now it's all developed, the waterfront's completely developed. There was a bar called Pier 4, and it was built to accommodate these very rich yachts, men and women who came in with their huge boats for a place to have something to eat. It was called Surf and Turf, which is usually lobster and steak combination restaurant. And this huge bar, which was incredibly successul. We used to pull $10, $15, $20,000 a shift from sales. But it was this big right down on the harbour front, so you had the lake, all these boats jingly jangly around it, and big sort of piers that came out to go to the boats. So what you attracted in essence were very rich people, men usually, and uptown girls looking for a rich guy and a nice boat. So you had this funny mix of wealthy people and girls on the make. Anyway, right in the center of the bar, where people cocktail lounge, was this huge horseshoe-shaped bar that we worked behind. And we usually had a team of 4 bartenders because it was so busy, all women. And I was one of 4, and we did very long shifts, probably 16-hour shifts. Extremely busy bar. And we would pool our tips like most places do even these days. You pool your tips, however much you make, throw it in the pot, divvy it up at the end of the night. So very busy. We had regular customers from Bay Street, which is the equivalent in New York to Wall Street. A lot of stockbrokers, a lot of high flyers used to come down and drink themselves into oblivion at happy hour, which was usually between 5 and 7 in the evening. Anyway, working really hard. We're a well-greased team, worked really well behind the bar. And you get all different characters used to come in, you see. And had to be, if you were a good bartender, you didn't just deliver their particular brand of poison and do it well. We did very theatrical stuff, like Tom Cruise in Cocktail, big streams of free pouring and dancing with the refrigerator doors, pulling their beers out and flipping. And the better you performed, the more money you made. So we were pretty good at making tips, worked well as a team, as I said. And so you get all these different characters. Of course, one day this particular chap drifted in. Short man, very, very thin. His skin was sort of just stretched over his bones, and he had a slightly reptilian look about him. He had eyes that had no emotion in them whatsoever, sort of like a crocodile's eyes. And very, very expensive suits, extremely expensive silk shirts, and just happened to drift in and sat down at the very end of the horseshoe bar. And it didn't take long before all of us sussed out he was one very difficult customer. His name was Rainer. And Rainer was German. Very heavy German accent. And his particular brand of poison was lots of coffee. He can sometimes go through 4 or 5 pots, those circular glass orbs of coffee. And cognac, the best we had behind the bar. So he was very difficult, and I usually got the difficult customers because I could hand out abuse as much as I could take it. So I was always allocated the difficult ones, and then at the end of the shift we'd sit down and compare notes, and then we would move them around the next time they came into the bar if they did. So I had Rainer, and having been a bartender for quite a long time, because I was in the theatre, so as most people are in the theatre, restaurants, cocktail waitressing, bartending works very well as a way of making a living, because you certainly don't make it in the theatre. So it worked very well, and I looked after Rainer. See, he was in my sort of section of the bar and happened to sit beside the coffee machine. So I looked after him. It didn't take me long to suss him out as a very abusive sort of character. look past the Gucci Armani suits, this man who was loved to deal out abuse and liked to see people squirm. Well, I wasn't what you call the squirming sort. So, put his card on the bar, as they all did in those days, scooped his card, looked at his name. Oh, Mercedes-Benz, eh? This guy was president of the Canadian Mercedes-Benz. Put his card back with everybody else's collection, ran a tab, and he started in on me. And, you know, being quite, I don't know how to really describe Reiner. He was absolutely, totally hit the nail on the head every single time. And his hammer was huge. And so, but mine was bigger. And he absolutely bloody loved it. I could see his little smile. He had these very thin lips that he stretched over his yellowing, big, very elongated teeth. You know, he looked like a skeleton. It's just like, you know, serving cognac to a skeleton. That's what in an Armani suit. That was easy, like. And he never really got really pissed. He'd drink huge quantities of cognac. He was a very practiced drinker, obviously. And he never got pissed, but you knew it started to affect him because his grin got very long and thin, like the Cheshire cat without the little bit that comes up around the edges, just very long and thin. And he'd sit there with his hands underneath his bony little chin, and he'd glare at you, and he'd just wait for you to come within his sort of, you know, area of recognition, and he'd lambaste you with what he thought was an incredibly, you know, agile, witty, precise, and incredibly intelligent bit of abuse. And the game was that I had to take the abuse, don't show any emotion that I was offended or shocked, even worse, but get the abuse that he hurled at me, ingest it, and throw back better. And I was very good, very quick in those days. And I had a sense of humor. And he loved it, absolutely loved it. So at the end of the first evening, I gave him his card back, and he gave me a $500 tip, which, of course, in English money is about 250 quid. Well, $500 in 1982 or 81 was one hell of a lot of money. Of course, that was part of the game. See how I would react to this nice tip, you see. And I said, well, it's very kind of you. Thank you very much. And, of course, at the end of the night, when it came up time to divvy tips, my other three partners had one look at that and went, bugger hell. What the hell did you do for $500? I said, it's just abuse. That's all. Simple abuse. Nothing we're not used to. Anyway, they couldn't believe their luck, see. And I had actually hoped that Reiner wouldn't come back because he was one distasteful man. Anyway, sure enough, he did come back because, of course, people who like to be abused and hand out abuse, they don't get very many opportunities to do it and pay for the privilege, you see. So, anyway, he started ringing the bar and speaking to the maitre d' and finding out if I was on shift because he'd only come if I was on shift. So I had lots of warning he was coming, see. Of course, my partners, my three other bartenders, knew he was coming too. So we set ourselves up so that whatever happened, when Reiner came in, I looked after him exclusively, you see. And they carried the load with everything else. Well, that was always fine and well for them. I was the one that was putting myself on the front line. I was making the tips from him, and we would share them. So after a while, I got a little bit upset about that, but I suppose being democratic, one had to kind of take it as it came. So anyway, he came in fairly frequently, handed out the abuse, never ever unbuttoned his suit, never sweated, stayed completely calm, and just lambasted me. But I ended up looking after him on a one-to-one basis. Reiner would come in fairly frequently, probably once a week. This went on for probably a month before the first thing happened. And that first thing was, he rang as usual to see if I was in. Of course I was. And he came in and called me over. So I went over, of course, said, "Good afternoon, Reiner." And he had these keys in his hand. And he dangled them just like a little carrot in front of my face. And he said, "Come over here, I've got something to show you." took me over the window, which overlooked the car park, put the key in my hand. He stood behind me like this slithering lizard. Blah, 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 blah. When he got really excited, he would do a kind of lizard thing of going blah, 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 with his lips. And I said, yeah, so what am I looking at? And he said, over there, don't you see it? Oh, yeah, I bloody well did see it. Cherry red, Mercedes, convertible sports car. Hood was down, white leather interior, brand spanking new. And Reiner whispered in my ear behind me, because he was such a short little guy, his mouth was right by my ear. He said, it's for you. Now, thank God he was behind me, because for a split second I let my complete psyche and demeanor fall, including my face. Of like, oh, bugger, hell, oh my God. You know, I was in the theatre, I was poor, I was 10 speeding every day to work 6 miles. I couldn't even afford the bloody transport, buses or streetcars. So I went, oh shit. But I knew the game by now pretty well, and that is if I gave in, if I'd said, yeah, fantastic, thank you so much, Reiner, and took it, I would have lost the game and I would have had to do whatever he wanted me to do, which was not even worth bare thinking about. So, as much as I wanted that car, oh my God, it was beautiful. I had to gather my forces and I had to supersede him, because that was the game. I had to better him every time. It was like a game of chess. I got to better you. So, I swallowed and I said, what, that piece of shit out there? What, that red? He said, what are you talking about? I said, what, that red thing? I just turned around and dropped the keys and said, sorry, Reiner, wrong color. Straight face, of course. You can't even look like you've got anything else going on. I said, wrong color, and walked away. Oh, not checkmate, but mate. You should have seen his face. Couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe I would have refused it. So anyway, he came back to the bar for at least 2 to 3 hours of mutual abuse. And of course, part of his conversation was, why don't you want the car? I said, because it's a piece of shit, Probably costs a lot to run. I'm just a simple bartender, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, away he went. And about, when was it? Probably at least a couple of months later, because it was getting on to winter. And of course, winter in Toronto is brutal. Really brutal. Very cold, very, winds are just unbelievable, coming off Lake Ontario. And you've got these huge high-rise buildings, you've got these wind tunnels, and it's like, oh God, wind chill factor. What is it today, minus 60? All right, okay, well, I'll ride my bike to work anyway. So, anyway, he came in, and this time he didn't call ahead of time, see? So I didn't know he was coming. Another, it's like when you ambush, it's like the element of surprise. So anyway, in he walks, and he had this full-length ranch mink coat, okay? Which, in those days, very, very expensive. And of course, the whole fur industry, nobody in the right bloody minds would wear fur, except maybe on the inside, so nobody could see it, because it actually kept you really warm, but certainly not on the outside. So when he came, and he threw this full-length ranch mink coat on top of the bar. And it was a very quiet time, thank God, because it was sort of just before happy hour started. It was like 4:30 in the afternoon, so there weren't a lot of people there. Anyway, he threw this ranch mink, and I just went, he said, there, that's for you. And I said, what, for me? He said, yeah, that's for you. And again, same thing with the car. If I'd accepted it, checkmate, give in, do whatever you want me to do. So I said, oh my God, look at that coat. Look at warmth, style. It just exudes money, but wasn't really interested in any of that. But so I just had to swallow, and I just looked at it and I said, would you get that piece of shit off the bar? Get that dead animal off my bar. He said, what? I said, look, if you're going to give me a fur coat, at least you can get ermine. Sable and ermine. Lowly ranch mink, any floozy can wear something like that. And he just couldn't believe it. I said, look, if you don't get it off the bar, I'm going to have the bus boy, the lowest of the low, and lowest rung in a restaurant. I still have to get him to remove it and put him to coat check. So again, he took it off and he left. See, he was really offended this time, because he thought, oh well, she won't accept the car. I know what every woman wants. Yeah, no, you bloody don't. Reptiles don't know what women want. Anyway, so off he went. He didn't come back for a couple of months. And then next time he came back, and this is the really telling time. This relationship went on for about 8 months, okay? Next time he came back, bearing no gifts this time. Came back, sat at the bar, but this time he was drinking heavy. So, load him up. He must have gone through over a bottle of cognac, maybe 1.5 bottles of cognac. So he's getting drunk, see? And because of winter time, the bar was really hot. And he made the mistake of taking off his jacket, which he'd never done before. And this scrawny, skinny, seriously, he was built like the size of a malnourished 14-year-old boy, Anyway, took off his jacket and put it on the back of the bar stool. And he was sweating really heavy. And he had one of those silk shirts on, really expensive silk shirts. Of course, when you sweat like that or get silk shirts wet, it gets really transparent. And on his arm, I can't even remember if it was left or right now, he had a tattoo. And the tattoo was the SS. Of course, we all know what the SS is, don't we? German, SS. Put one and one together, and I got 150 points immediately. And I didn't notice it right away because I didn't want him to know that I noticed it because I was figuring out how I was going to use it, you see. So anyway, I gave him another drink, and he was completely oblivious to the fact that, oh my God, my SS bloody thing must be showing. Anyway, I went up behind him and I slithered in his ear and I said, oh, Reiner, I said, your tattoo is showing. And his face, what a picture. I checkmated him big time that time. He went, oh, and the realization hit him, bloody hell. And he couldn't have got his coat on quicker, and he couldn't have left quicker either. And I went, God, I'm dealing with a Nazi, a hard Nazi. And actually, when you kind of put two and two together, yeah, president of Mercedes-Benz, a lot of ex-Nazis, they got top jobs, yeah, make them credible if they have to live in the Western world instead of going down to Bolivia or wherever they hid some of them. Yeah, respectable job, top of the heap, German, yeah, I should have known, really. Well, one never really thinks that you're serving cognac to a Nazi SS guy, but there you go. His age was right, sort of 65, maybe pushing 70. And anyway, so I thought, oh, bloody hell. And he didn't give me a very good tip that time either. So, of course, my 3 partners going, what happened? He's not giving you your usual $250 or $200. I said, oh, yeah, well, never mind, maybe next time. So, of course, it took him again, probably another month passed before he came back in. This time, I don't know who he had talked to, but he found out I was engaged to be married, you see, to a chap I'd been living with for quite a few years. He's an actor and all that. So we decided after 7 years, well, why not? Let's get married. So I was engaged, and he obviously got word of it. So he came in, and it was very busy, actually. He came a little later than he usually did. And he came in and walked straight behind the bar, bold as brass. Nobody walked behind that bar. That was like sacred soil. Nobody walked behind there. Plus it was very busy and quite dangerous sometimes. Anyway, walked behind the bar. He got down on his knees. And I thought, oh, here we go. He's been away long enough to concoct some kind of new game, you see. Got down on his knees, opened up this box, and he said, marry me. And of course, all my regulars and the girls behind the bar just dead quiet. I've got this man on his knees, this skeleton reptilian Nazi president of Mercedes-Benz, on his knees with a rock the size of bloody Gibraltar in this thing on a ring, an engagement ring. Oh my God, what do I do? Like, not only is it the most embarrassing thing to happen, but he's absolutely sincere. This wasn't a game, For the first time, the guy actually had a little flicker of emotion in those crocodile eyeballs he had. And I thought, this is just, you can't take that seriously. Nobody can take that seriously. Even though he was serious. And I said, Reiner, get up off your knees. You look like an idiot. He said, I'm not getting up till you give me an answer. I said, no, that's not the answer I want. This is a man you don't say no to, really. I said, no, I'm already engaged. No, to an actor. You don't want an actor, you want me. He said, I'll give you everything. anything you want. Blah, 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 blah. And I said, no, Reiner, get up. You're making a fool of yourself anyway. When he realized I was serious, and I wasn't into checkmating at this point, because I actually kind of started to feel sorry for him. He got up, said, fine, walked out, and I didn't see him then for about another 4 to 6 months maybe. And but when he left, I went into the loo and I just started gnashing my ripping my fingernails off. God, what am I doing? What is happening? Anyway, no, I did the right thing, absolutely. Anyway, when he came in next, he had this stunning sort of Las Vegas showgirl, tall, blonde, huge, chest, waist like this, legs that go on forever, beautifully dressed, walked in and introduced her as his wife. And of course, as far as he was concerned, the game was still on, see how you deal with that. And of course I was married by then, and I said, well, very pleased to meet you. I felt the same saying Mrs. Gold Digger, because on her hand, which she flashed very nicely, was that huge rock. And I was absolutely, totally professional, wasn't gonna, I'm not gonna rise to this at all. You're introducing me to your wife, fine, good luck to you. And gave them their drinks, very civilized. Minor said goodbye. The wife said, I'm very pleased to have met you. And I said, likewise. And off they went. And that's the last, thank God, the last time that I saw Reiner. From still being in the theatre and working in bars, etc., I moved from the harbour front, and about, I think probably 6 years later, found myself bartending in a rather swish hotel called the Ramada. I was also chief steward of the employees there, so it's quite a nice mix of union activity and being a bartender. And the Ramada Hotel was a very tall, probably 250, 300 room hotel, owned by two Jewish twins called the Rubens, very orthodox Jewish, interesting men, but quite hard to work for. But the Ramada was in a very funny part of Toronto, even though it was in the middle of Toronto, sort of kitty corner to the CBC. And they always used to come in, Canadian Broadcasting Company, come in and eat and drink. And then Maple Leaf Gardens, and then, but just on the edge was Dundas Street and Bay Street, and a little farther over. And this is where they had a lot of parks that the down and out used to go and sit in and drink and do their drugs. And then a little farther down was the Salvation Army. And I lived within walking distance of where I worked. So every night after work I'd walk home, which is a bit dangerous because people thought I was a prostitute. Not that I looked like one, but what's a woman doing out on the street at 2 o'clock in the morning at this section of town? So it was a very interesting, vital kind of time, big changes in my life. But anyway, there I was bartending, and the clientele was pretty good. You get a lot of kind of visiting celebrities because it was close to the different theatres, etc. So the guests kind of varied from your steady bread and butter of CBC coming in, guys coming in to drink, and then visiting celebrities. And so anyway, the cocktail lounge was kind of upmarket, and they did a lot of original paintings on the wall, etc. Not really my taste, but there you go. Anyway, one day, bartending, and it was early afternoon, and in walked, you could smell him before you saw him. In walked a guy who'd lived on the street probably for the last 20 years, 30 years of his life. Absolutely filthy, disgusting, dirty. Ragged clothes that hadn't been washed in God knows how long. Big, bulky, hair all over the place, grimy. Anyway, comes and sits up at the bar, and at one end of the bar I had about 4 guys from the CBC who I just couldn't believe that this thing had the gall to walk in. And my manager was sitting over doing paperwork at a table. Anyway, came and sat up, nice little chap, came and sat up at the bar and took a $20 note and put it on the thing, and very respectful, very nice, and said, could I have a shot of rum with water on the side? In the background, my manager's going, and I thought, well, look, A, he's got money, B, he's respectful, C, he's not already drunk. As a matter of fact, he was stone sober. The CBC guys, who knew me very well, were looking at me like, you're not really going to do it, are you? You're not really going to serve this piece of humanity, are you? And I said, yeah, I'll tell you what. I said, I'll give you 1 drink. Is that a deal? 1 drink? He said, that'd be lovely. Just 1, it'd be fine. So, poured him a shot of lamb's rum, little side of water, took the 20, gave it back. He said, keep the change. I said, oh, no, that's fine. You have the change. No, he said, I want you to keep the change. I've always wanted to tip, and I've never been able to, so please keep the change. So I said, right, fine. Left it on the bar. Didn't put it in my pocket, and had this drink, and he was absolutely in seventh heaven. He said, this is the first drink I have had in about 4 years. I said, oh, yeah. Of course, think just spinning a yarn here. I said, oh, yeah, 4 years. He said, yeah, I haven't had anything to drink. This is my first drink. He said, boy, this is a fancy place, he says, looking around. I mean, this guy was stinking so bad, it was all I could do just to be in the room. Anyway, but nice man. So anyway, he says, yeah. He said, you look like a nice girl. You not many people would serve me, especially in a nice place like this. I said, well, you're nice, you're polite. I said, and the important thing, you've got money to pay for it. That's important. He said, yeah. He says, tell you what. He took another 20 out of his depths of his stinking raggy coat. He put it on the bar. He said, could I have another one? I said, hold on. I said, the deal was one. And he said, I know. He said, but it was so good. He said, I promise I'll only have this one and that will be it. And I said, okay. In the meantime, my manager is absolutely steaming out of her, anger and all that stuff. So, okay, well, I'll serve you another one. So another shot of lamb's rum, put it in front of him, took the 20, gave him the cheese, said, keep the change. I said, no, I can't keep the change. I mean, the drinks in those days were like $2.50, $3 a shot. So, it's quite a lot of change out of a 20. Anyway, I put it on the bar, and he was very insistent, and I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to rub this guy up the wrong way. Who knows? He may be carrying explosives. Who knows? So I says, okay, we'll put it on the bar. He says, you're a really nice girl. Most people wouldn't talk to me or let alone serve me. He said, I'll tell you a secret. And I thought, here we go. Here's the price for, delivering 2 shots of rum to what we call a rubby, somebody who lives on the street. He says, I'll tell you a secret. And I said, So I leaned as close as I dare go, because honestly, my stomach was absolutely reeling with the smell. And he said, I won the lottery. I said, oh, did you? Congratulations. He said, you don't believe me, do you? He said, no, I won the lottery. I said, oh, I see, the lottery. It's quite similar to the English lottery, 649, pick 6 numbers out of 49, take your chances. He says, yeah, I won the lottery yesterday. I said, oh, did you? He says, yeah. He said, I said, well, if I were you, I wouldn't speak about it too loud. He said, you don't believe me, do you? And I said, well, look at you. I mean, if you've won the lottery, where did you get the money even to buy a ticket? He said, oh, I've been saving up. I said, I see. He said, look, I'll show you. And he opened up his really raggy, stinky, disgusting coat with a huge pocket on the inside, reached in and brought out one of about 6 wads of money. And I just, well, what would you do? You saw that. I said, put it back in your pocket. He said, what? I said, put it back in your pocket. And he said, what? I said, look. He said, nobody'd hit me in a place like this. This is a classy joint, he said. I said, look, anybody would hit you with money like that. I don't care where you are. I said, how much have you got in there? I said, he said, $90,000. I said, what, in cash? He said, yeah, you don't think I got a bank account? I said, no, I guess you don't. So I said, look, if I were you, I'd just keep that money. I would go to a bank. I would give it to somebody that you trust. Don't walk around with it. And he said, yeah, that's good advice. He says, you're really nice. He said, I got a family, I got a family in Saskatchewan I hadn't seen in 30 years because I've been an alcoholic living on the street. I said, well, you know what if I were you? Clean yourself up, go to the bank, put it in, get a new suit of clothes, go back to your family. They'd be really happy to see you now, especially since you stopped drinking. He said, that's a good idea. He said, look, I'll be right back. See? So I said, yeah, all right then. He said, I'm just going to go around and get myself a pack of cigarettes. There was a little shop just outside the door, about 50 paces along the road. I said, okay. Of course, the second he left, my manager was on to me like a, as they say, fly on shit. How dare you bloody serve somebody like that? We have a reputation. I said, look. I said, fine. I was chief steward of the hotel, so I could kind of be mouthy as I liked, really, when it came down to it. I said, look, he was a decent man. Okay, so he smelled, so what? I said he was respectful. He's no problem at all, see? And the CBC guys were jibing me, give me a hard time. And I said, yeah, look at you fat cat bloody TV guys. Come on. Anyway, he didn't come back, see. So I thought, I wonder what happened to him. Because I believed him, yeah. He had all that money in him. So anyway, about half an hour later, I had to take all of these credit card receipts into the lobby, go through the bar and into the lobby. Of course, they have these very soundproof doors on the cocktail lounge because they had live music at night. So I didn't know the rumpus and ruckus that was going on in the lobby till I opened the doors up. My God, there are 2 policemen, this man with all, this street bum who was just in my bar and didn't come back, on the ground. They were trying to pull him out of the hotel, and he was screaming, holding on to furniture. I gotta go see her. I gotta go to the bar. Beaten up, bloody. So I went over. He went, there you are. Tell them. So I went over. I said, what are you doing, officers? He said, we're getting this piece of humanity out of the lobby. I said, let go of him. I know him. He's a customer. What? I said, yeah, he's a customer. And by this time, he latched onto my leg, going, hey, you've got to help me. Tell them I didn't steal it. So I said, let go of him. I said, this man needs help. He should be going to the hospital, not jail. Look at, he's been beaten up. I said, what happened? I sat him in a chair. I said, I'll take care of this, officers. Bye. Thanks a lot. Bye. And when I sat down, I said, what happened? He's bleeding. He said, he was holding on to me. He said, I went to get my cigarettes, and they were waiting for me. They jumped me. They beat me up. I don't know who they were. I don't know. But they obviously, it occurred to me that somebody's been watching him and waiting for the moment of weakness. You see, he's been in a bar. He's probably drunk. We'll hit him then. Anyway, I said, this is terrible. I said, look, you've got to go to the hospital. You've been beaten up really bad. His nose was in the wrong place. He had gashes on his head. God knows, he said, I suppose I have to go. I said, good place for you. I said, you know what? You go to the hospital, they'll clean you up, you'll get a haircut, etc. They'll put what you've got. He said, guess what? I said, what? He said, they didn't get it. He opened up his jacket, and he said, they didn't get it. And I said, brilliant. So anyway, got the ambulance, they came and they took him away. He said, I actually wished I had gone to see him, in the hospital, but I didn't. Life as a bartender, I suppose.